Nope.
Mr.
All
President.
right. Yep, it's time. Yep. Thank you. I press continue to confirm. Okay. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Nancy Ferry was our inspiration, but I don't see her on at the moment. But would anyone like to give an inspiration this morning? Anybody want to? Okay. All right. Well, skip that and wait till Nancy comes on. And so, all right, we'll start with our pledge then. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Good to see you all. Dave, you have an announcement? No, just waving.
I have an inspiration if you'd like it.
Go ahead, Phil.
All right. It's an Irish Christmas, or excuse me, Irish kitchen prayer. Bless us with good food, the gift of gab and hearty laughter. May the love and joy we share be with us ever after. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Phil. I would like to welcome our guest today, Chris. Welcome back. Good to see you. And also we'd like to welcome our guest from Rhetorical Roar, Karen Stewart. Karen has been with us before, so we'd like to welcome her back to our meeting. Are there any announcements from the floor? Margo?
Saturday night is our star show. 8:30 we're going to gather. Hopefully by 9 o'clock we can be outside. Steve, what do you want to throw in there?
Well, we're going to have a beautiful crescent moon to look at. It won't be quite first quarter yet, so that'll be better than last month. Mars is going to be right close to the moon, so we'll have that to look at. I have a plethora of Messier objects that are visible this time of year. If it'll let us out there, we have a lot of fun stuff to look at. If not, we'll talk about it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Margo and Steve. Are there any other announcements from the floor? Larry? You're muted.
Multitasking, sorry about that. I do have the slate of upcoming officers for the 2021-2022 proposed slate of officers that I will be presenting at the end of the meeting today, and then opening up for any nominations. And then next week, I do believe we will have final nominations, and then we can post it to a vote. But I will present that later when called upon, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Larry. And the chicken barbecue is May 8th. I sent out the flyer on social media, but you want to elaborate more, Larry?
Thank you, Eric. The Western New York Hydrocephalus Association will be holding a chicken barbecue May 8th at the Gratwick Park in North Tonawanda. And it will be held from 11 a.m. until sold out. We also have chicken and pulled pork that day, but we will have live entertainment with a group called Garden Party. They will be there from 12 to 2. And the park is open for, we will have a bake sale and a raffle and some other things going on too, if you decide you wanted to come out and spend the day at the park. So thank you, Eric, for the opportunity to present.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Larry. Are there any other announcements? All right. Well, hope you're all hungry today. It's going to be a very tasty meeting with Marc Campos as our Toastmaster. Marc, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guests. We'll start off with some housekeeping first. First of all, kudos to Dave Licata for delivering an impromptu inspiration this morning. Thank you to Moklis, our alternate speaker, the quintessential professional that he is. He was at the ready to step in when speaker 2 dropped out. Thank you, Moklis. Thus far, we are in great shape with the job holders. However, evaluator number 1 and evaluator number 3 have yet to show. So we'll give them a little bit of time, but if those of you could contemplate your willingness to step in just in case, I would appreciate it. All right, so here I was last Sunday. I was fresh off the realization that I am the Toastmaster this week. Along with that comes the realization that I can't just show up and mail it in. I actually have to put some thought into this and maybe a little bit of preparation. So what should my meeting theme be? And I'm watching TV and I was drawn to this documentary, The Food That Made America. And I have not watched this consistently, but I got sucked in because this particular episode talked about the origin of a couple of fast food franchises, both of which I'm particularly fond of because I grew up with them. They each had a location in my neighborhood in Queens that I grew up in. The first of these is White Castle hamburgers. Now, White Castle is not a Western New York thing. Many of you may not be familiar with it, but they basically invented the slider, these tiny little burgers. And I didn't know this, but White Castle was the first fast food franchise in America. I would have figured the smart money would be on McDonald's, but it was White Castle. Now, in the documentary, they talked about how the small burgers were their thing, but also how they were sticklers for cleanliness and all of that sort of thing. And that might have been believable in the Midwest in, say, the 1930s, but in Queens, New York in the 70s and 80s, not so much, not so much. But it was a badge of honor when you went to White Castle. All the other boys in school would be talking about, well, I could eat 10 of them. Oh, yeah, well, I could eat 15 of them. And then by the time you get to be a teenager, it would turn into one of those destinations you would go to maybe after a night of drinking. But one should be careful because if you overindulged on the drinking, the White Castle might not be the best idea. Just saying. Now, the second franchise that they talked about was Nathan's Hot Dogs. Now, I think most everyone is familiar with Nathan's Hot Dogs. We see the hot dog eating contest every year on the 4th of July, just sheer American gluttony on full display for the world to see. Now, Nathan's, here's a pro tip. You can find Nathan's hot dogs in Wegmans and BJ's and all that, but there's not a lot of Wegmans outlets nearby. I think you can find them in Florida. And then, of course, there's the famous one in Coney Island. But here's a pro tip for you. They're known for the hot dogs, but the French fries are outstanding. They are these fat, crinkle cut fries. You can get them with cheese. They are just absolutely delicious. And as far as the hot dogs go, now look, in Western New York, we're all very proud of our local products. I get it. I'm with you. I consider myself a Western New Yorker. I know Salem's is where it's at locally. And don't get me wrong, I like them. But trust me when I tell you, anyone that I have introduced to Nathan's Hot Dogs has never gone back. Think of it this way. If they weren't that good, how else could Joey Chestnut eat 75 of them with the buns in 10 minutes during the hot dog eating contest? Need I say more? So look, as we progress through this meeting, let me get this out there. The theme is fast food. I know it's bad for you. I know it's garbage. So please, no shaming today. This is a safe place for everyone. Consider it a confessional. You can confess your fast food sins to Father Marc and the rest of the Toastmasters here today. So when you have an opportunity to speak, I really want to hear you talk about your favorite fast food places and your favorite fast food items. And with that, I would like to propose a toast. Here's to quick and greasy meals. Hear, hear. All right, with that, I would like to introduce our job holders for the day. Our word master this morning is Jen Zappala. Jen.
Well, Mark, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold up to your standards today because I chose the very first word that came to mind when I saw the theme of fast food, and that word is yuck. I do not find fast food very appetizing or appealing myself. Now, yuck, I learned in the dictionary, there are multiple meanings, and we are only going to be using the second definition, which is an expression of rejection or disgust. Interestingly, I'll also include the derivation here for you. And our friend Larry may be a little bit more familiar with the word yuck because it was originally a Newfoundland slang word meaning to vomit. And in the US, it became slang as well and has gone on from there. So I'll include that full derivation as well as yucky and an adjective deriving from the word yuck. You will not get credit if you use the first derivation or the first, definition of the word yuck, which is a slang to laugh, joke, or gag. So I put all of that information in the chat, and you may use yuck as an expression of rejection or disgust. Now, because Mark did ask us to share our favorite fast food restaurants, I will share that I do like John and Mary's, which is another great local for subs. Now, I've heard not everyone likes this particular restaurant, so you have to remember to always get the Royal with oil. I've never gotten anything else at John and Mary's. There's nothing else worth getting. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jen, for providing such a colorful and arguably appropriate word for today's Toastmasters meeting. I didn't think one could find so much background on the word yuck, but you did, so outstanding job. Our master this morning is Dave Licata. David.
I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz. And I take this very seriously because we're in Toastmasters to learn how to speak, listen, and lead. And you can't lead if you're going, And that's pretty much that phrase, or that my outlook on that was pretty much inspired by Mayor Byron Brown of Buffalo. So I'm going to be very carefully counting the ahs, the ums, the pauses, and you will receive kudos if you use just the right amount of pause, because that helps us bring in people into our speech. Now, I do not consider myself a gourmet, but I do consider myself a gourmand. And deep down in my soul, I hate to admit this because a lot of people think they're yuck, but I like the Burger King Whopper with cheese. And I will drive a few extra miles for that. I mean, right past McDonald's. I don't like McDonald's at all, but I do like the Whopper with cheese. And be on your toes today because we're going to be counting those ahs and ums because we want you to sound sure of yourself. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. Our grammarian this morning is Marty Johnston. Marty. You're muted, Marty.
I thought I was unmuted. Okay, now I'm unmuted. Father Mark, good morning. Fellow Toastmasters, good morning. Most welcome guest. Top of the morning. As grammarian this morning, I will be carefully listening to everyone that speaks during the whole meeting and keeping track of extraordinary uses of the English language, and then perhaps English language that might need a little twist or a little help. And I'll report back at the end of the meeting. Hopefully it will not be too yucky. Thank you, Father Mark.
Thank you, Marty. Our quote master this morning is Carol Ann Halstead. Carol.
As far as fast food goes, I'm with Dave Licata. I think my favorite is the Whopper with cheese at Burger King. My quote is from an unknown author. A flower does not think of competing with the flower next to it. It just blooms.
Thank you, Carol. Our jester this morning is Anne-Marie Lenhart. Anne-Marie.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My favorite fast food place is Ted's Hot Dog. And I love the, the largest one, which is a foot long with greasy French fries and onion rings. So that's my favorite. My second favorite, and I don't know if this fits into the category of fast foods, is Alethea's candy. And my favorite is chocolate covered popcorn. And unfortunately, I live right around the block from Alethea's. And every time I go by, it calls to me, chocolate, chocolate. So I end up driving in there, which doesn't help my Weight Watchers dieting at all. But great topic today, Mark. And I just have a couple of jokes. 4, actually. The first one, what fast food does a young cannibal order? A kid's meal. What do you get when you cross a hamburger and a computer? Obviously a Big Mac. Why did the rooster cross the road? Because he heard that the chickens at KFC were pretty hot. And last but not least, how did Burger King propose to his girlfriend? With an onion ring, of course. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Our timer this morning is Eric Schneider. Eric.
Thank you, Father Mark. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Timing today is most important in our meeting. So our table topics, there's a so wherever David is. Our table topics will be 1.5 to 2 minutes with a 50-second buffer. Our timing for speeches is 5 to 7 minutes with a 30-second buffer. And our evaluators will be from 2 to 3 minutes with a 15-second buffer. And I will keep on reporting when called upon to do so. And as far as fast foods, I'm going to go with Dr. Lenhart here. Ted's Hot Dogs is definitely the top choice for fast foods. But I'll go to like Panera, Subway, or 7-Eleven down the street because I always get pizza. But I digress because if my parents are on, they will kick my butt. But anyway, that is some of my favorite fast food joints. Thank you, Father Mark.
All right, thank you, Eric. Our tech and gesture master is Steve Smith. Steve.
Thank you. I'll get this. As I been listening to all this morning, I can't help but think of the old Saturday Night Live routines, point, counterpoint. Now, I'm not going to quote some of that because it got pretty intense, but leave it to say that most of us are very strong-minded one way or the other. I'm in favor of fast food. I've had it my whole life, and I'm damn near 67. And as far as I can see, it hasn't killed me yet. Now, I'm going to give you a blast from the past. One of my earliest memories was of a place in Lockport called Henry's Hamburgers. Some of the older people there might remember that. I've actually got a Pepsi glass that I got there when I was a teenager with a Pepsi logo all over it. However, my job today, I am the gesture master. Now, that is one of my favorite jobs, being able to watch people's body language, the nonverbal parts of their speeches, and how well they're playing to this camera up here, which leads into the other job that's been dumped onto this, the tech master. Well, I can't think of anybody more eminently qualified to talk tech than me. But I will do the best I can and will report later when called upon to do so. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve. Our quiz master this morning, Len Thornton. Len.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest. My job's a simple one today, no yuck factor there. I'm simply to pay attention and find some little nitpicky facts during the meeting and quiz you all on it to see if you're paying attention as well at the end of the meeting. As for fast food places, being a Western New York native, how is it that nobody's mentioned Mighty Taco yet? It's a hometown original. It hasn't fared too well in Rochester. They tried and had to pull back from there. But late nights coming home after the bars, that was the go-to place. Also high on my list, Jim's Steakout. My God, I think it's the closest you can get to a Philly cheesesteak in Western New York. And of course, Ted's onion rings. Somebody mentioned those before. High on my book as well. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Len. Len, I will point out that at this point, you are the leader in the clubhouse in terms of your fast food recommendations. With regard to Jim's Steakout, I have still not gotten over that the Lockport Jim's Steakout closed down. I'm still not over it. I might seek some counseling at some point. In any event, our general evaluator this morning is Phil Russell. Phil.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. It's always a privilege to have the last word. And as the general evaluator, I will evaluate the evaluators and meeting as a whole, and especially Marc. And you're doing a wonderful job, Marc. I love it when you have Toastmasters, is because just the topics we have. You could come up with the goofiest one or the coolest one, doesn't matter, but it makes an entertaining meeting. Great job to start off with. Now, when I was growing up, fast foods to me was Buy's Popcorn, Castle's Dairy for ice cream, and Reed's Hot Dogs. I didn't know any other place of that until about 65, my graduation year, when we're taking the SATs at the University of Buffalo. I went over to, at that time, the glorious McDonald's on Niagara Falls Boulevard near the Boulevard Mall. One of the first ones around. 15-cent hamburgers and the best fries you'd ever want. Nothing like they have today. Absolutely yucky today. But in those days, it was just wonderful. Now, I don't know if Reed's Hot Dogs qualified or not, but that was a local favorite of mine. And the other places that, after we started to do it, I did have an experience with White Castle after an evening of entertainment. But our favorite place was the Greasy Spoon in Lockport after an evening of entertainment, or the infamous seafood bar in Alcott, which no longer is there, but what a place that was. You could get entertainment and food all in the same time out in the wonderful blue sky, dark sky of Alcott at night. And you could stay there until 6 because the entertainment went on all night. Now, that's my story of fast foods. I will be doing the general evaluation. Thank you, Marc.
Thank you, Phil. Phil has clearly brought his A game today in terms of fast food. I feel bad for those that are not locals because we've really kept a local emphasis on the fast food joints. Reed's is really exceptional. It still amazes me how good it is, how cheap it is, and how you can order 22 things to a teenager who can turn around and relay it to the cook and get it right and never miss a beat. With regard to White Castle, I neglected that we used to affectionately refer to them as belly bombers, which tells you pretty much all you need to know. All right, it's now time for everybody's favorite portion of our Toastmasters meeting, the opportunity to show your skills speaking extemporaneously. Our table topics master this morning is Sylvia Baptiste. Sylvia.
Morning. What a topic. I love this topic. And I have a volunteer. I seen in the chat that Karen Stewart has a great story that she's willing to share with us, and I want to hear it. But please remember, Karen, to use the word yuck in your story if you can. Karen Stewart.
I am unashamedly a fan of Burger King, as well as my whole family. We love it. So when I recently took a road trip, it was just me and my 10-year-old son, Mitchell. We stopped at Burger King for my favorite chicken sandwich, the original chicken sandwich with no mayonnaise. And I am always looking out, thinking of my husband, looking out for the best way to maximize my money at a fast food place. So when I saw the buy one, get one for $1 option, I thought, terrific. It doesn't matter that my local Burger King's 2 for $5 option isn't here. The buy one, get one for $1 is. I've got it made. Well, on that list, as you would guess, was the original chicken sandwich, but also the Impossible Whopper. And I thought to myself, Impossible Whopper. They picked a catchy name for a new sandwich that in this case is a burger with no cheese and plenty of add-ins. And I thought to myself, my 10-year-old who has already had one burger in the last 24 hours won't mind. He'll gobble it right up. It even has pickles, his favorite add-on. So I order the original chicken sandwich with the Impossible Whopper. I look at my receipt on my way out, after both of us have devoured our meal happily, and look at the total and think that was not the price destination that I had in mind. The food was delicious. There was nothing yucky about it, but the price point, not helpful. So I spoke to the manager to get clarification, and that's when it dawned on me. I had ordered my son the Impossible Whopper, which was not a hamburger. It was a meatless burger. And all I could think was, I'm so proud of my son, Mitchell, who has tasted many delicious hamburgers and would know the difference, for happily devouring his first veggie burger with a cheerful smile. And I thought to myself, I will never make this mistake again. I am such a fan of vegetarian food in most cases, but I don't think it belongs between a bun at a place like Burger King. And that was that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I like that story. That's great. I have eaten out a lot, unfortunately, with 2 kids active in sports and Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, travel baseball, travel soccer. We did live on fast food while they were home. Jackie Kenny, have you ever gone to a fast food restaurant and order and say afterwards, I could have gone to a sit-down meal for the cost of a fast food restaurant?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I don't recall an overly expensive fast food meal, but that is a place to get my favorite food my entire life as a kid and as an adult. French fries. Love, love, love French fries. When I was a kid, that was all I wanted. On the rare occasions when we went out for a meal, French fries with ketchup and salt, please. That's all you needed to make me happy. I never said yuck when someone put a plate of French fries in front of me. I like Wendy's French fries currently. They're not bad. And I remember with fondness Henry's. Henry's makes a hamburger a beautiful meal. You could get great French fries, and they'd give you like a half-pound bag of French fries to take home. It was wonderful. They were crispy, they were hot, they were perfect French fries. So that's kind of my favorite fast food go-to. I don't do fast food a whole lot anymore, although for many, many years, that was the place to be. I raised 3 kids, so driving through was a bonus. When you were in a hurry to be somewhere and you had hungry kids in the back seat, you drove through, nobody said yuck, everybody ate whatever was in front of them, and we had a happy car. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Jackie. My favorite is violas. Got to remember, I'm from Niagara Falls, got to have violas. And I do remember Henry's French fries. That just brought back a lot of memories. Thank you for mentioning that. I love their French fries. Used to pick them up on the way home from school. Kate, are you there, Kate? I don't know if Kate's there. Well, I'm going to go to Tom. Thomas, have you ever been surprised when you went to a fast food restaurant and said, oh my gosh, this is not fast food, it's delicious?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I have, but what I'd like to talk about is a couple that may not be local, like Steak and Shake. That one actually was the one that would be that surprise. I want to talk about a fast food that probably no one's even thinking of in the 80s that came about. There was the invention of the microwave. And most of you will be like, yuck, I don't like anything that's ready in the microwave within 1 minute. But I'll tell you, Table Topics is 2 minutes long, and I can make both macaroni and cheese and a hot dog in that amount of time and eat them both in another 2 minutes. So it's very pleasurable. A lot of the things you can make, a lot of them taste so good, are so full of chemicals and ingredients that just make our brain release chemicals for a pleasurable experience that I just really can't get away from the enjoyment. When I want to cheat, a lot of times it's not to go to the fast food restaurants. It's to get out a 1 minute microwave meal or something that I can heat up in the microwave and make myself very quickly and enjoy. Then another thing you can do is you can soften your ice cream. You can make desserts. They now have the little cakes, and they even have little pancakes with maple syrup and everything. So they've even expanded out away from just a few simple things. You can actually specialize and get little fast food shots all throughout the day, anytime. And I like the fact that it teaches children how to start cooking from an early age. It's not too hard to put something in and press a pre-cook button. They know to press the number 1 button and go, and they're good to go. I was very fearful of them boiling water, but I wasn't afraid of them putting something in the microwave other than metal. And that's a story for another time. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you. Mr. Toastmaster, would you like me to call for time and word, or would you like to do that?
You can do it.
Thanks. Eric, times report.
Thank you, ma'am. Table Topics Master. Here are timing portion from her. Karen Stewart was 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Jackie Kenny at 1:44. And Thomas hit on the nose at the buffer at 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Madam Table Topics Master.
And John, how did our word do for today? Yuck.
All 3 of our contestants did manage to use the word while floating down memory lane for a couple of them. And it reminded me that if you are so inclined to stop into John and Mary's and get that Royal with oil, you should finish it off with a Loganberry. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Okay, I am going to get this back to Marc. Father Marc, you have a new name.
Thank you, Sylvia. So please cast your vote. You have that opportunity right now. Kudos for the violas reference. There's nothing like a viola sub wrapped up very tightly in saran wrap that takes you about 10 minutes to figure out, and you're really hungry and you're struggling with the damn thing and you just want to eat it, but the saran wrap is in the way. I had a lot of fun at Viola's because a coworker of mine who's a bit of an easy target, ordered something a little too wacky, and they're very much like the soup Nazi from Seinfeld there. If you don't stick to the plan, you could get yelled at, and he got yelled at, and it was a lot of fun. When I talk fast food, I have to give some acknowledgement to at least one of the behemoths of the industry, that being McDonald's. The movie The Founder is really a pretty interesting movie with Michael Keaton talking about how Ray Kroc built the McDonald's franchise and scaled it up from what it was originally. I miss the McDonald's of the 70s. As a little kid, going to McDonald's, you would have thought I was being brought to the finest steakhouse in New York. I loved the limited menu. There were just a few things. They served you the sandwiches and those styrofoam containers that were really bad for the environment, all of that stuff. But my very favorite item in McDonald's history, those of you that remember this, is the apple pie. But not just any apple pie. Back when they used to fry the apple pie, oh my God, they were so delicious. And then at some point they said, no, we can't do this anymore. And they started baking the apple pies, and they're awful. They're absolutely awful. So think about this for a minute, Toastmasters. Everything on the menu is terrible. It's bad for you. It's unhealthy. But McDonald's comes to the realization that, we can't serve these fried apple pies. They're way too bad for people. How bad were they? They had to be basically like death in a package. But if I could have my way, I wish they would bring them back. With that, we will move on to the speaking portion of the meeting. I would like to introduce our first evaluator this morning, who will be evaluating Margo Sue Bittner, Ryan Flory. Ryan.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. Thank you for the introduction this morning. I will be evaluating Margo. And as we know, Margo is a brand new Toastmaster, and so we'll be giving a speech out of Dynamic Leadership Pathway Level 1. Margo's speech today will be a second rendition of a previous speech in which she's going to apply feedback. No?
Nope.
That's the evaluation form that I got. Yep. I will, okay. All right, so the good news is I have the time in the title, Mr. Timer. The time is 5 to 7 minutes. And Mr. Toastmaster, do you have the title?
I do.
Okay, excellent. Then I will pass it back to you to introduce Margo.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Fellow Toastmasters, Margo has been a member of AM Lockport since January 1998. Given the variety of ways she's participated in the club, she's decided to use this path that she's on to share what she's learned to help ease the way for other members. Her speech title today is The Most Nerve-Wracking Part of a Speech. The most nerve-wracking part of a speech, Margo Bittner.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. How many people have listened to their evaluation, at the end of it have said, oh, that was wonderful, I can't wait to speak again? Wave your hand. Nobody. 3. Okay. How many people have received an evaluation and said, oh my God, I'm leaving this group, I'm never coming back, forget it, I'm done? That's me. Okay. I have had evaluations, now that I've scared Ryan totally to death, where I have sat in my car and cried. So I'd like to give you some hints from both the speaker and the evaluator's point of view that could help you ease the way. If you are the speaker, number 1, write your own introduction. Answer this question. Why this speaker? Why this topic? Why now? Which is what Marc read for me. Number 2, remember as you plan your speech to let your evaluator know what you're doing. Now, I thought I had shot Ryan an email, and as people know, I tend not to repeat a speech because I can never remember what I said last time. So make sure you let your evaluator know what you're doing and if there's something important. And number 3, and this is the lesson that probably took me 10 years to learn. It's only one person's opinion. Make sure not only do you listen to your evaluator, but let's read those little notes that you get. Now, if you're the evaluator, how can you make it easier for the person you are evaluating? For the next 3 minutes of your life, that speaker is the only person in the world. You want to focus on them. You want to focus on their speech and what they did. You don't want to repeat their speech, and you don't want to give your own speech about their topic. Number 2, smile. Believe it or not, when you smile, a speech comes out completely differently. For example, if everybody here is going to answer the phone today, right? That's part of what you're going to do. When you answer the phone, don't smile. Just say hello. But next time you answer the phone, smile when you do it and say hello. There's a whole different tone to my voice. There's happiness, there's hope, and there's joy. And even if you're giving a tough evaluation, if you smile when you do it, it can be accepted a lot better. Number 3, evaluate the speech, not the speaker. Now, this is a tough one because sometimes you say, how do I differentiate? This is where Dave Licata's famous toolbox is perfect. Look at David's smile. That's where you think, what are the givens that this person came in with? What are the skills they have? And to critique the speech, not the speaker, think about some of the things they might be doing. For example, we love to tease Tom Moran about his glasses. And those are a great prop. But there are times when those glasses are coming on and going off and coming on and going off, and it's distracting. So if you phrase it this way, it tends to be easier on the speaker. I found, I believe. And that's one of the more important things about an evaluation is it's your opinion. And like I said before, it's one person's opinion, but not you did, you thought of, why did you? But my perception is, which brings me to language. How many times have we said, I really loved how you did this, but? But's what your parents told you when you did something almost right, but you didn't quite get it right. Or you wrote that paper and the teacher really didn't like it. Try to eliminate the buts. Instead, try perhaps. Perhaps you might try. However, have you thought about, I tried such and such, and then you can pull it all together in a way that is much more helpful. Now, the sandwich approach is absolutely wonderful. You start with a positive, you have some improvement, and you stop and with another positive. But how many, and I'm guilty of this myself, have done a double, triple layer sandwich where it's positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. The worst phrase for me is to hear, oh, what, one more thing. Because that, yeah, look at Karen's face. Yes, one more, you know it's going to be negative. So my suggestion, if you have that one more thing, put it in the written evaluation. You've just ended on a wonderful, happy note. You've had this person all excited to speak again. Don't do the but. Put it in the evaluation and say something like, I wish I had more time because I really want to share with you such and such. Now, the word evaluation begins with the letter E. So think about yourself as encouraging, energizing, and showing enthusiasm for everything that person did. And hopefully you won't, like I did many times, sit in your car and cry afterwards. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Margo. I can certainly empathize. Only once in my 17-year Toastmasters career have I been on the receiving end of a mean-spirited evaluation, but it did happen once, and it is not a good feeling.
I'm jealous.
Our second speaker this morning is Moklis Raman, who will be evaluated by, there's my piece of paper, by Beth Banks. Beth.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster. I do have the challenge of evaluating Moklis, so I've gotten to know him and I know that his speech will be wonderful. He has a 5 to 7 minute speech entitled The 13 Virtues of Ben Franklin. I'm looking very much forward to that. Now, he does have a challenge because the purpose, according to the evaluation form, is to connect with an unfamiliar audience, which for most of us, we're probably more of a familiar audience than unfamiliar. So I look forward to that challenge. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you. Fellow Toastmasters, with lifelong passion for learning with Dale Carnegie and Toastmasters for over 20 years, Ben Franklin remains the most inspirational to Moklis, especially his rigorous discipline to improve himself as precisely written in his autobiography, 13 Virtues in 12 Periods. So please welcome Moklis Raman with 13 Virtues of Ben Franklin. 13 Virtues of Ben Franklin, Moklis Raman.
I hope I can do the stage a little better this time. Basically, my speech starts from why. How do you go to Carnegie Hall? Any answer?
Practice, practice, practice.
Practice. Title of my speech, as Marc just mentioned, 13 Virtues in 12 Periods. Periods are 4 weeks. Who is Ben Franklin? I think you have all seen or read or heard or saw documentary on Ben Franklin. In his autobiography, he really precisely put down a process which amazed me. I've been a student of self-improvement for a long time. And he found himself looking at his personal, professional life. He lacked certain virtues. And he listed them and he wrote them in his autobiography for future generation. What are the 13 virtues? 1, temperance. That means don't drink or eat too much. 2 is silence. 3 is order. 4 is resolution. 5 is frugality. 6 is industry. 7, sincerity. 8, justice. 9, moderation. 10, cleanliness. 11, tranquility. 12, chastity. 13, humility. I think the 13 is the one I need the most, I feel. So how did he go about acquiring these virtues? Once again, he really laid out a beautiful map. He took 13 virtues and focused on one of them for one whole week. At the end of the day, he would note how many transgressions he had on that particular, like temperance. And next week, he would change to number 2, silence. And following third week would be the order. So he takes a 13-week cycle to examine, self-examine how he performed in certain of the virtues. Like most of us, he had pretty much very good in many of them, and there are some areas which were pretty much black marked because he had too many transgressions. And after 13 weeks, he would cycle it again. In 1 year, he would go through these 13 virtues 4 times. Again, I go back to my earlier questions. How do you get perfect, better, improvement? By practice, practice, and practice. Now, these 13 virtues were right for him at the time. You and I may have a different set of virtues that we can pick. For example, I have right now only 4 that I work on. My number 1 is being humble. My number 2 is silence. Number 3, he doesn't have it, is to be simple as I can be. And number 4, which he doesn't have, but I have, is smile all the time, because a smile is the most powerful communication tool. As many of you have heard me say, learning is from cradle to grave. And in order to improve ourselves in any endeavor, a laser focus is important to improve a particular aspect of your character, virtue, or a skill. If you do too many things, it gets too many distractions. So why I share with you is to encourage us to all self-examine and keep on working towards the improvement for personal life, family life, community life. Even our nation could use a lot of moderation and a lot of order so that we could have a much happier and better society. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Moklis. Our third and final speaker this morning is David Jones, who will be evaluated by Tracy Farrell. Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. David is, as we all know, he's been working out of the humorously speaking path, and he has a very interesting topic today. Our Toastmaster is going to pick 2 random questions, and David has to speak to them for 2 to 3 minutes. Mr. Table Topic or Mr. Timer, it'll be 2 minutes green, 2.5 minutes yellow, and 3 minutes red. So twice he's going to do that on a random topic, and he has to relate a story into his speech also. So, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tracy. David's speech title this morning is I Don't Know the Question. I don't know the question, David Jones. So David, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and since I'm particularly fond of the meeting theme, since it was my idea, I'm going to stay loosely connected to that if you don't mind. So David, I'm a banker, you're an entrepreneur, you're coming to me for a loan, you're going to open up a fast food place. Give me your business plan in 2 to 3 minutes. What place are you opening up? What franchise or what original idea, David?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Toastmaster Campos, before I begin, when I was in my early 20s, I dated and lived with a lady for a while. Her name was Jackie Campos. Do you have an ex-wife in Miami named Jackie?
I am happy to report I don't have any ex-wives. Thank you.
Great, that would make this very awkward if I did. Now, the subject of going to get a loan from a bank is a subject that I think we all like to talk about, banking. Whenever we're at parties or events, who doesn't like to talk about banking? In fact, I think you must know a little bit about banking since you asked me the question about banking. You probably have an average to above average knowledge about how banking works, getting loans. And I think that you probably asked me the question, not knowing me that well, but knowing that I am not an entrepreneur and I know nothing about getting loans. And the reason you asked me the question as a seasoned Toastmaster is that you wanted to see if I would be able to skirt around the question and still be able to provide an answer to the guests. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I have nothing to know. I know nothing about banking or getting loans. But the interesting thing about today's conversation of fast food is everybody was talking about hot dogs. Now for the guests, I happen to live in North Carolina. I grew up in Miami, Florida. Hot dogs, I've never even heard of a hot dog fast food restaurant. I think Sonic might have a hot dog, but I would never get it. It's always burgers and tacos. In fact, tacos, Taco Bell, I read somewhere that for men, if you're going to eat fast food, the healthiest, least calorie is Taco Bell, and that's usually where I go. I never researched it. It could be totally false. It could be fake news. I don't know. I've never really looked into it, but Taco Bell is definitely my place. And if I were to do a restaurant, it would not, maybe I'd do a franchise, because my go-to burger place is Five Guys. I don't know if you have them up there, but I would actually need to come to you, Toastmaster Campos, to get a loan to eat at Five Guys, because it is one of the most expensive restaurants, fast food style, to me. Mr. Toastmaster.
Well, thank you, David. I too am a fan of Five Guys, so you've really impressed me. I'll tell you what, I'm giving you the loan. So now it's late in the day, the bank's about to close. You want to get right to work, but you're hungry. There's not a lot of food options, but down this main street in our fictional town is every fast food restaurant known to man. So I want you to give me your fast food meal, but here's the caveat. You have to incorporate items from at least 3 different places. So describe that meal for us.
Again, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and again, welcome fellow Toastmasters and guests. I'm driving down the road, and the first place I see is McDonald's, because McDonald's, to me, when I was in high school, I worked at McDonald's, and I only worked there a brief time. It was one of those things where I really liked the Big Mac, fries, and Coke. That was a standard, but I picked a place that was like 10 miles away from my house. It was one of those things where I was eating there and they said, do you want to work here? And I applied and I got a job, but it was really silly. And I left and I went to Burger King, and I took my uniform, which Burger King was very excited about. And Burger King, like most people here, is my favorite. I like the bacon double cheeseburger. Not a big fan of their fries, so I'll usually get, I think they have cheese sticks now. But Burger King is a passion of mine, because I don't know how many of you know this, but the corporate headquarters of Burger King is in Miami, Florida, or it used to be. I think they were recently bought out. And while I worked at Burger King, the first thing back then, you would have to watch videos. I don't know if anybody ever worked at Burger King or not, but you'd have to watch videos. Back then, you know, the VCR, you'd plug it in and learn how to make Whoppers or clean the equipment. And I don't know if you know this guy, but that would be me. I used to do all the videos for Burger King, teaching you how to make Whoppers, how to clean the equipment. I just got lucky, and I was the guy that you would watch nationwide. It was all over the place. I did recruitment posters where when you're in Burger King, it said, join us, and it was me and 2 other people's. I was down in the Florida Keys, and I saw a poster, my poster up on the wall. And I told the guy, hey, that's me. You want me to sign it? And they're like, that's not you. That's an actor from New York. I was like, no, you know, it's me. It was very frustrating. But when I did live down in the Florida Keys, I worked at a place called Lums. I don't know if Lums is still around anymore. I don't think they're down here. But I only worked there briefly because one of the things we had to do back then was we used the plastic forks and knives. And Lums also had hot dogs. I think they were beer battered or beer cooked hot dogs. That's what they were known for. But we had the plastic forks and knives. They weren't in plastic back then. And there came a point where we ran out of the plasticware, and the manager actually asked me to go into the dumpster, retrieve them, we wash them, and then re-put them out. And that was my experience. Therefore, driving down the road, I'm not going to Lums. McDonald's, a little iffy, but I'll definitely go to Burger King. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, David. Eric, can we get a timer's report, please?
There we go. All right, Mr. Toastmaster. It wasn't a yucky speeches, but it was a very tasty and delightful speeches, especially with David with Burger King. Now, I was wondering if he has a commercial on YouTube, if we have to look that up. No, all right. Our speakers, Margo came in at 5:49, Dr. Rahman at 5:15, and David Jones for his first humorous speech was 2 minutes and 23 seconds, and his part 2 was 2 minutes and 39 seconds. So all of our 3 speakers have qualified for time, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Eric. There you have it, fellow Toastmasters. Please cast your vote for Margo, Moklis, or David. So in recent years, we've seen an increase in what I'll call higher end fast food places. Things like Panera Bread. For Mexican food, you have things like Chipotle or Moe's Southwest Grill or Salsaritas. In that category, Mexican, I'm a Chipotle guy. I know they had some problems with food quality and all that stuff a few years ago, but I'll take my chances. If I want Mexican, it's good and you get a good amount of food, which for this guy is always a big priority. I'm a growing boy. In the burger world, there are places like Shake Shack, Five Guys, Whataburger. I haven't tried them all. I will tell you that Shake Shack, if you can find one, is outstanding. There are none in Western New York, but it is really good. And they have some good beer there as well. But as David pointed out, Five Guys. Now, Five Guys is a really good burger, in my opinion. Now, I agree. It is very expensive for what it is. And I think you have to be careful. What you think you need for French fries, you don't need. Never order the large fries because you'll get a lifetime supply of French fries. But my very favorite thing about Five Guys is walking in the door and you are just immediately smacked in the face with the smell of fried grease. And I can feel my arteries hardening on the spot just by walking into Five Guys. At this point, we will move on to the evaluation portion of the meeting, and I'll introduce evaluator number 1, Ryan Flory. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Margo. Evaluating a speech about evaluation puts me between a rock and a hard place. Margo, your speech this morning was timely, being the first speaker. I think it was a good reminder for all three of us as evaluators, and of course the rest of us here that are going on to be evaluators in the future. The introduction was fantastic. I think placing us all and reminding us all to take on the perspective of the speaker while you're the evaluator was important for everybody. The information was really well conveyed. I think it was understandable. It was relatable. I think your pacing was fantastic across the board. I think you did a really good job of working through both slower and faster pacing to hit on emphasis on certain things. The only thing that I would nitpick, being the evaluator and wanting to make sure that there's a little bit of meat in the middle of that sandwich, just vocal variety and tone, make sure that there's clearer breaks. You're building up to emphasize and coming back down, and just a little bit clearer breaks. I think it helps to create breaks in our mind as the listeners, just to keep that moving and a little bit clearer for transitions. Overall, though, it was good information. It was conveyed. You were animated in front of the camera, had great movement and body movement and eye contact with us. And although not much in the way of props, I think that's just a typical Zoom. And again, with the vocal variety, with the movement on screen, you kept us drawn in without any kind of additional hold. So well done. Relating was fantastic. And again, I think a well-timed reminder for all of us as evaluators. So thank you, Margo, and thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Yuck.
And he looks like he just logged off. So I'm going to turn things over to our second evaluator, Beth Banks, who will be evaluating Dr. Rahman. Beth.
Good morning, Eric, our president. Evaluating Moklis is always a challenge because he is a very good speaker. I would like to say one thing about castles in Newfane, one of my first jobs, and I can say yuck. Oh, there were many people that brought their families to castles and they loved it. However, working behind the scenes, I did have a problem with the owner. I didn't understand why families ever brought their kids to castles because that woman swore like a sailor the entire time she was working. How could the children not have heard that? Yuck. So getting on to Moklis. There were some things you really did well, Moklis. Your pace was very good. You paused. You had very good gestures. The background worked this time, so love your background. I will say that in spite of wearing glasses, and then it's a challenge for people to see if you really are making eye contact, it did seem like you were doing that. Very interesting topic and presentation. You might want to work on centering the up and down. There were a few times when your part of your head in the top kind of got lost a little bit. So just readjust the camera a little bit there, not very much. You had very few ahs until the very end. You seemed to stumble a little, like you weren't sure if you were going over. You were definitely not going over. So I would like to challenge you when you do your next speech, if you do something like this where you have a number of things to talk about, the 13 virtues, watch the timer's little box and see if you just got to green, perhaps you would like to expound on a couple of those virtues a little bit more, stretch it out a little bit and give us some more information about Ben Franklin's virtues. That would be my recommendation. Otherwise, very good job. Loved it. Thank you, Moklis.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Eric, for watching my back while my laptop crashed and rebooted. I appreciate it. Our third and final evaluator this morning is Tracy Farrell. Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters, and especially David. David had an extremely difficult program that he had to accomplish today, trying to go through some questions and relate a story to them would have been very daunting to me. But he did an excellent job bringing humor into it. When he first opened up, he opened up with a joke that was able to, it's hard to find a prepared joke that would work for a topic that you just didn't know. And he knocked that right out of the park. He did a great job. And he was able to stand up. His gestures were very good. He was able to stand up, talk naturally to us, and answer the questions. And he was confident when he was answering the questions. If I was to give any advice, and I know this is a humorous and it's not really a persuasive speech, but telling your banker that you have no entrepreneurial experience probably isn't going to get you the loan. So I might have used a little bit more persuasion in my answers, but he did excellent in that. And his second question, it was sort of the same thing. I don't think he mentioned once what he was going to get as he was going down the street, but his stories were so good. And I was kind of brought into the story that I forgot that he's not even answering the question till afterwards. And I thought about it, I was like, wait a minute, he didn't do anything. So I guess that's probably one good thing about a speaker is they can get, if you can turn your speech around and not let them know that you're not really giving them the answer that they want, but you're still keeping them occupied. He did wonderful in all of those things. His timing was great too. Trying to do 2 stories and come in time. Both times he did an excellent job. He was able to keep us interested. I'm amazed at how he accomplished this project. He did an excellent job, and I hope to hear a lot more from him. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tracy. Eric, can we receive a timer's report on our evaluators, please?
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, all of our 3 evaluators qualified. Ryan at 2:03, Beth at 2 minutes and 24 seconds, and Tracy came in at 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Eric. So please cast your vote for Ryan, Beth, or Tracy. Fellow Toastmasters, I'll leave you with this. Sitting upon the throne above all of the fast food franchises in this country, in my opinion, is In-N-Out Burger. And I am so glad that nobody has mentioned it yet. You can't get an In-N-Out Burger anywhere in the East. They're only in the West. And it's quite an interesting story. It's a family-run business. They've resisted any overtures to franchise their business anywhere else. They've rejected millions of dollars to open franchises in the East. And the reason being is they have meticulous freshness standards. There are no freezers or microwaves in an In-N-Out Burger. And every location must be within 300 miles of where they make the patties. If you've never had one, or never been to one, the next time you head west, anywhere from Texas into the Southeast and in California, you'll find a lot of them. They are just absolutely delicious. And I'll leave you with this. Pay attention. Remember this. You want a double-double with grilled onions and fries animal style. Double-double with grilled onions and fries animal style. You're welcome. And with that, I will turn control of the meeting over to our general evaluator, Phil Russell. Phil.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I was getting caught off guard there. I was just looking at some of the chats that were very interesting. I wanted to first mention a few things about Marc. His presentation, the way he presents himself with the camera, is very professional. I do a lot of Zoom meetings with professionals, most of which are you're sitting. I've had one where it was a very good professional presentation by 4 different people. 3 were seated, 1 standing. The one standing was so far out of the picture, we had a hard time concentrating. The other 3, it was about the book they wrote. It was so incredible how all 3 of them were very professional in the presentation, all seated. The one that was standing was in an awkward position. And I'm going to mention that because that's part of with this is Marc's positioning. For some reason, I don't know what kind of camera you're using or how it's set up, but I think it's very good. Mine is a very simple, just looking straight at it. A lot of us, when I look out there, are the same way. Margo is a little bit below her. Some are a little bit up. That's your preference. And I wanted to mention this because it was mentioned a couple of times about with Moklis and with David. Mike Florio even pointed out. He looks like he's in a what do you call it? One of those stand-up comedy routines in a professional place with a background. His camera setting is excellent. When I look at Moklis, it was good, but it's not as professional as yours. And sometimes it has to do with the quality of cameras we have, but we have to use the best we have. Should you stand or should you sit? It's what you're comfortable with and where the presentation. That's my opinion. All of this ties in with this visual that we get. I like to look at the gallery view. I like to see everybody's expressions when people are speaking. That's what I like. Some people just like to see the speaker, but I like that, and I can see everything that's going on. And that's why I like the way Marc presents himself in his presentation as Toastmaster. And let's go on to the evaluators. Ryan, you mentioned the vocal variety. You don't have to say you're nitpicking because that's an important thing. Vocal variety is very, very important in a presentation. It gets your point across. But I wanted you to be a little bit harder on Margo. I mean, I really wanted you to beat her up. She was my mentor for a while, and I think she deserves a good beating every now and then just to keep her honest. Beth, you mentioned pace, background, a couple of good things. Now, one of the things that I learned from another person that was in Toastmasters and he was in Dale Carnegie was pacing. This is my most, how would you say it, difficult thing to do in Toastmasters? Speaking in thought phrases. As pointed out, sometimes I don't even end sentences, but we call that in our family Russell speak. You have to finish it yourself. That's the way it's supposed to be. However, thought phrases smooth things out. And when he told me about this, I said, "Ooh, that is crucial." I work on it all the time, and it's very difficult to work in those thought phrases because we tend to just speak in little short phrases and choppy. So that's what happens. It was good feedback. Good mention about the camera. And where's Tracy? Tracy, we saw three different styles here today. And Tracy mentioned it. She liked that story. And the improvisation, it was great. And then I realized when I learned something, what Tracy said. I said, "Yeah, did he rehearse that?" And then she said, "Oh, he wasn't even answering the stupid question." And I said, "Oh, yeah, he wasn't. I was just enthralled in it. I thought that was good feedback. I thought that was great." That's what made it. I liked all three of our evaluators. I liked our Toastmaster, and especially this fast food. I did want to mention I was going to start mine with, "Oh, I haven't had fast food and I don't know how long. I'm so proud of myself." And then Chris brought me home Popeyes. But it is real chicken. It's not that mashed up stuff that they throw in and is brown. It was real chicken, but it blew it. Now, I'm going to turn it back over to Mark. Do you want to call on you have your schedule in front of you better than I do. I'm going to ask you to finish off because that's where.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. I already just discarded the schedule, but I can improvise and overcome here.
If you want me to go back, I'll wing it.
No. That's fine. So
okay.
Thank you, Phil.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Let's start with our tech and gesture master, Steve. How did we do today?
Well, I made quite a few notes here, and a lot of items I wish to talk about have already been brought up, which actually makes my job easier. Almost everybody was looking right at the camera, which is a good improvement. I have a problem doing that because I forget I have to play to the camera, not to the picture in front of me. But the problem with that is most people were seated, and I'm going to disagree with somebody here. Some people that are seated, you can't, their hand gestures are like down here and you're only getting part of them. Mokeless and Dave Jones both stood up, gave us a wider shot, and you could see their hand gestures, and it added immeasurably to their speeches. Well, I like that way of going. Mark, you have a wider shot there, which is good. You can see more of what you're doing and gesturing. And that's my main comment is that people were using hand gestures, but you can't see them because they're using too tight of a shot. And that's about as tech as I'm going to get. So thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Our grammarian, Marty Johnston. Marty, how did we do today?
Thank you, Father Mark, very much. It wasn't too yucky. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to start with Margo. Margo, there were a lot of nice phrases that I heard, a lot of good uses of the English language. It wasn't too yucky. Margo said the sandwich approach is absolutely wonderful. And Phil Russell scared me for a minute there. He was talking about speaking in phrases and how it's important to speak in phrases. And then he said, "I wanted you to beat her up." And for a second there, well, where am I? Where am I? He was talking about Ryan giving Margo a tougher evaluation. So point taken on my end. And then Phil, you just had a slight misstep, misspoke. you said, do you want me to call on? And I know you were going to finish the sentence and then you started something else. And I know you meant call for reports is what you meant, or on the roll holders for the morning.
If I may interrupt as the general evaluator, I'm glad you pointed that out because that's exactly how Russell speak works. I didn't finish it and you came along and finished it for me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good job, Phil. Beth, I like the phrase you said, I look forward to the challenge, working behind the scenes, expound on a few of the virtues when she's speaking, evaluating Moakley's speech. Marc, quintessential speaker. One of the behemoths of the industry. Moakley's, I enjoyed the points that you made. And then at the end, I liked how you said for a better society, those different virtues and those different points all used for a better society. So points well taken. David Jones, to turn around the question and provide an answer. Very, very vivid. Tom H. Oh, how he likes all the junk food and all the additives. And it can be done in a microwave. Tracy, I was drawn into your speech. A lot of colorful words, a lot of vivid expressions that I liked. When you open your speech, when she was talking, she said, when you first opened up, and then she said, you opened, and I would have, to make it a little clearer, I would say, when you opened your speech, and then say what you meant to say. Karen Stewart, the impossible Whopper. And Jackie, I like the imagery you used in your grammar, and when you said, going to the drive-through with 100 kids in the back seat. And Ryan, I like the phrase, you put me between a rock and a hard place. And then I missed a word or two here, perhaps. You said, it was great information. And then I think you started talking about how they conveyed it. And I didn't know if you meant it was great information that you conveyed. Overall, I think everyone did a great job with grammar today, and it was thankfully not as yucky as it could have been. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marty. Our master, Dave Licata. Dave.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests, just a brief forward on this. For those that do not understand reads or not familiar with reads, I invite you to go to Yelp and read my review of reads. I think it's the finest bit of prose I've ever written, and perhaps it's worthy of a New Yorker article. But getting on to my job, Marty had 3. A big shout out and congratulations to Carol Ann. She only had 1. Dr. Leonard, you will have no more ahs ever again going forward, because the only time you is when you take a little breath. So make that breath silent and the ahs will go away. Eric had 1. Steve Smith, 1 and 1 very long and. Phil Russell, 1. Tom had 3. Ryan, 2 and 1 Beth Banks, 2. Muckless, 1. Tracy, 1. And David Jones did not but it was fascinating to find out we have a celebrity in our club now. And you're very telegenic as a teenager. That's why they used you. Good job. Mr. Toastmaster, that's the report.
Thank you very much, David. I very much enjoyed that master report because I basically know that now that I got away with mine today, which is good news.
Did you
Our
sneak one by me?
More than one.
Oh boy.
Our quiz master this morning, Len Thornton. Len.
Mr. Toastmaster, I'm going to be a stand-up guy today. See if I can stay in the frame here. Okay, everybody unmute yourselves if you plan on participating. A little bit more height there. There we go. Can you see my hands, everybody? Great. Number one, which individual holds a record of 75 Nathan's hot dogs consumed in 10 minutes with rolls?
Joey Chestnut.
Joey Chestnut. I enjoy watching that on TV every year. That kind of fits in with the theme, yuck, and the particular meaning of it, Jen explained, that meant vomit. I think that's part of any contest as well. Yeah. Next question. How old is Steve Smith?
67.
Yeah.
Oh, he is
Almost.
damn near 67.
I told to be 67.
Karen's discovery of Burger King, which quite surprised her, was what?
Impossible Burger.
Impossible Burger made by Impossible Foods. It is a beef alternative, and it tastes very, very close to beef. And that is the future going forward. Trust me on that.
Not my future.
I hear you.
You tried
I
that.
hear you.
Need to put bacon on it.
Whopper.
Plant-based bacon.
Adoption.
Crushed bugs.
Sylvia's favorite, and it's in.
It's Viola's. That's where you gotta go, Letty.
Henry's.
You mentioned Jim's Steakhouse.
I did mention Jim's Steakout. I texted that. Okay.
No, we want you to go to Viola's, then you won't go to Jim's again.
Okay, we'll try Viola's next time I'm over that way. And who went nuts when Sylvia mentioned Viola's? Dave
Very.
Ricotta. He was quite animated.
I was just there 2 days ago.
Okay, Western
saying.
New York's uniquely favorite soft drink, and it's only available at certain fast food-
Loganberry.
Loganberry, absolutely.
You want to know the story about the Loganberry?
I'm proud to say that Mighty Taco has always had Loganberry. All right, just a general fact I noticed during the meeting. How many of our members are employing virtual backgrounds? Count. We have 8 members. 8 members rocking the virtual background. Wonderful thing. I love Ben Franklin's virtues. If I have people list them out, it will just be a cacophony of noise for the next 2 minutes, so we won't go there. Our host, our Toastmaster of the day, talked about what category of fast food toward the end of the meeting.
Said fast casual.
No. Anyone?
Close.
And I agree with this distinction. Higher end fast food.
Oh, higher end.
He put Chipotle in there. He put Moe's in there. And he of course, he couldn't leave out In-N-Out. I've watched many videos of people's In-N-Out drive-through experiences, but sadly, I haven't been able to partake of that yet when on the West Coast. Next time for sure. That is my quiz master report, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Len. While I have embraced most things Western New York, Loganberry, I'm sorry, I just I think it's gross. I don't get it, but
You have no memories. You have no memories of Crystal Beach. That's the problem.
Yeah.
No, I don't. That's before my time. But hey,
Yeah.
to each their own. Last but not least, our word master, Jen.
Yes, our word did fairly well this morning. The people who did use it tended to use it multiple times. I believe Karen and Marty tied for the most. Karen used it in both the chat and in speaking. I heard Dave, Marty, Len, Phil, Karen, Jackie, Thomas, Eric, Beth, David, Moklis, Kate, and Larry used it in the chat as well. Or behind Larry, behind you. Yes, not in the chat. Okay. I know you wanted to specify there. So that was 13 out of 25 people in our meeting today that I heard it from. I'm not sure if I missed anyone. But fast food is yucky to me. So Mark, I will let you take it away.
All right, well, thank you, Jen. Well, that does it for me, fellow Toastmasters. I will turn control of the meeting over to our president, Eric Schneider. Eric.
Thank you, Mark, for a delicious meeting. Now I gotta go back to eat more Subway, but as you can tell, I need to go out running. Anyway, I would like to ask our guest, Karen, for her thoughts on today's meeting. Karen, unmute yourself and what's your thoughts?
So quickly to say this, what has turned me on to Toastmasters the most have been Toastmaster regular meetings. What has turned me off to Toastmasters the most have been Toastmaster meetings. Today was an impressive example to me of a terrific meeting. I value my time, and I really like to leave a meeting thinking that was worth my time. I took notes and have so many great ideas to take back to my club. Just a quick shout out to the AM Master, David Licata, and because that role is now elevated in my mind. And also a quick shout out to Margo, who I thought picked a unique speech topic, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, and I hope to be back next week.
Look forward to your return, Karen. Thank you very much. Chris was just on, and I see that she's gone, but I bet she enjoyed the meeting as well, and we look forward to having her again next week. Now, on to our winners today. It gives me great pleasure to congratulate Karen Stewart as our best table topics winner today. So congratulations to Karen. Our best evaluator today is Beth Banks. Congratulations to Beth. And we have a tie for best speaker today. Best speakers are Margo and David Jones. Congratulations to both our speakers, our table topics and evaluators. Are there any final thoughts, announcements from the floor before I adjourn?
Yes, Eric?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'll be the Toastmaster next week, and the theme will be positive psychology, the habits of happy people. And I look forward to getting all of your confirmation of your roles.
All righty, we look forward to the theme next week. Thank you, Dr. Lenhart. Are there any
Eric?
final?
Yeah, Eric,
All
real
right, go
quick. Mary is still making her famous steak and cheese sandwiches on Niagara Falls or on Military Road at Mariposa's, which I think is wonderful. And she's got to be at least 128, 145.
Phil, she passed away in February.
Ah, zays.
February 6th. She was
will
95.
be missed. 95. She was a wonderful lady. Did all the work.
Phil,
Yes, sir.
I went to Mariposa and they called her out to make sure the steak is cooked properly. And her vision was so bad, she had to lean over an inch from her ear was an inch from the grill because she was going on sound. That's when my son Michael and I did the great Viola's versus Mariposa experiment, which could be a whole speech for me later on.
There you go. Great idea.
Go ahead, Larry.
Quickly, Mr. President, I did put in the chat the proposed officers for our upcoming calendar year. I will be emailing that to all of the members, even those that were not able to attend our Zoom meeting, and then we'll present it next week for a vote. And back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you for the reminder. All right, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. It is 8:33. Have a wonderful weekend. Post Toasties is up next. And we'll see you guys tonight for social.